and welcome back to another episode of the Real Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Real Conversations is a podcast for those dedicated to doing hard things and building meaningful life. We believe greatness isn't given, it's built, brick by brick, day by day. Here we share the lessons and stories meant to help you on your journey to living your best life. I'm super excited. Just got in an awesome workout with Doug Sansone. Doug, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to start it that way. I feel like it really kind of helps build a bond. You have that shared struggle, that first experience together. That was an absolute blast.
Yeah, it was a great workout. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. One of the things I like to do with episodes like this is kind of explain the context behind it, maybe.
Sure.
So the context for me and why I find this episode so cool and exciting, I grew up in St. Louis with John, who's behind the camera on this episode. And we both were interested in business growing up, but we thought that you had to leave St. Louis to learn about business and to see people that are really succeeding and doing cool things. And through the podcast, I've been doing this for 6 years now, I found that's not the case at all. And when I started hearing about this company called First Form, and I was like, what is that? Learned about the Frisellas. I had Andy Frisella on the podcast, and then Sal, and then Emily Frisella. And then through that, I saw that Sal had done some sort of collaboration with a company called The Normal Brand. It's like, who's The Normal Brand? The Frisellas don't really partner with anyone on much stuff. They're very brand loyal to the things that they do. So I dug into The Normal Brand, and I was like, there's this guy named Jimmy Sansone. He's running that. He started out with his brother, Lan, and Conrad. So I had Jimmy on the podcast, and I had Lan on the podcast. And in those episodes, I could tell that something that mattered to them particularly was their family legacy, and the deep roots they had in St. Louis. And they mentioned and alluded to their grandfather, who'd started a real estate company called Sansone Group. So my next progression down that journey was, well, let's get someone from Sansone Group on the podcast. And I had your brother Nick on a year ago. That was about the same time, maybe a hair after. I'd seen Sal posting about doing a half Ironman with yourself.
Right.
And I had your brother on and learned about a little bit of the history. And I was like, oh my gosh, Doug just did a half Ironman at 50 some years old.
Yeah.
And everything else he'd been working on. I was like, this is just incredible. So that's what brings us here today is, I followed this progression. It's deeply fascinating to see high performers, not only in one realm, which is business, but also in another, which is you're pushing yourself constantly in this physical landscape. Like, I think that's so cool. So I've got a whole host of questions to ask you about today, Doug, but I want to start at the beginning. I want you to remind the listeners, what is Sansone Group and how did it get started?
Yeah, well, thank you. Sansone Group was started by my father in 1957, and he started from extremely humble beginnings, very poor upbringing. His parents were immigrants to this country, and my dad was had a brother as well. And he wasn't able to go to college due to his circumstances. The family couldn't afford it, and he had to go to work. He actually started working when he was like 8 years old, selling eggs door to door. And then as he got a little bit older into his teenage years, he worked alongside my grandfather, his dad, on Produce Row, which was down basically Soulard Market. And they had a banana stand, and my dad did that for many years with my grandfather. And then after that, my dad always had, a desire to do more and to be successful. And he started to go to night school, did some night school, and decided he wanted to get into business. So he gradually worked his way towards a real estate business. He had a couple other businesses before that. All were successful. And then eventually became a broker. And then did his very first deal in St. Louis. He brokered a Target store, which is still here over in Baldwin. And after he brokered that deal, he was going to get a sizable commission. And you may have heard this from my brother. I don't know. Oh, you did?
Well, yeah, but for the listeners, I think it's great context.
And he was going to get a sizable commission. And my dad was a big visionary. And, people talk about now manifesting and, all of these things that you do nowadays to, not predict your future, but set your goals and align yourself and your work and everything you do towards those goals. Well, my dad was doing that stuff 60 years ago, 70 years ago. So he was sitting there and he tells a story that he sat down on the hillside and he looked at some property that was in front of the Target that Target owned. And Target was known at that time as Dayton Hudson. That was the parent company. And Target wanted to sell those lots. And my dad thought to himself, I could develop those lots. And that idea came because he was sitting with my oldest brother who was having some trouble in school at the time. And my dad got him these Earl Nightingale tapes about success and working hard and that sort of thing. And my dad would listen to the tapes with my brother. I don't know if they helped my brother, but they certainly helped my dad. And on that tape, it said, look for your diamond mine in your own backyard. And my dad was looking out at that property and he thought, that's my diamond mine. So he went to a payphone. There were no phones at that time. And he called the guys at Dayton Hudson and he said, would it be okay if I bought that property? And they said, well, absolutely. You can buy the property if you like. And he goes, well, the problem is I don't have enough money. He said, I'll forego my commission, not take any of the commission, but put that towards the purchase. And if I can raise enough money, can I buy it? They said, yeah. So my dad went to an attorney friend of his who he had known for some years and presented the idea to him and said, I'll do all the work. I need you to put up the money and we'll partner 50-50. And his partner, which came to be his partner, agreed. And Dad built the first strip, which is still there. And then he had that leased before it was construction was completed. And then he bought the ground next to it, which Dayton Hudson owned as well, and built another strip and leased that out fully. And both of those are still there. And that's how he started in the development business. And that individual that loaned him the money was his partner for the next 50 years. Yeah. So it was a really, really cool story. But that's how he got started. But he continued throughout his entire career, always looking for what's next. He never would sit still and think, oh, things are going great. I'll just rest on my laurels. He always was looking for the next move.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing that story. And I think it's great because he didn't start on first base. Like, he had to make his own way. And I think that that's something that a lot of our listeners can relate to because, we're young, we're just coming out of college, we're just entering the world. And it's like, we want to make our mark. We've been told that we have the ability to do so if we work hard enough. And that's something that you want to believe. So every time you hear a story of someone who had to go through that, it just reinforces the idea that you can do it yourself.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. And even myself, along with my brothers, we certainly aren't self-made. No question about it. Thankfully to our dad, my dad, we had an opportunity to step into a business. Mm-hmm. But the way we were brought up by both my father and my mother was that don't be guilty because you have an opportunity to do something. What you should be guilty about is if you do nothing with that opportunity. If you just sit back, take what you've been given and rest on your laurels and do nothing with it, that's a disgrace. Mm-hmm. And you're disgracing yourself, you're disgracing your family, you're disgracing everybody in your life. And there's nothing to feel guilty about with that as long as you're continuing to progress and continuing to grow.
Yeah. One of my favorite Bible verses is Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much will be required. Yeah, and I think that's a call on responsibility.
My mom says that all the time. That was the quote I grew up with. To this day, I still use it. And it's so true. Too much has been given, much is expected is what my mom used to always say. And it's like, because you've had these opportunities, and I've been blessed with some fantastic opportunities and having a fantastic father and mother and a mentor and my dad and a partner. Mm-hmm. But to be honest with you, that's probably the reason why I've worked as hard as I've worked my whole life. And that is to show respect and appreciation to my father for giving me the opportunities that he's gave me.
Absolutely. Just to finish the full picture for the listeners, can you speak to the size of Sansone Group now?
Yeah, we're, I guess we're about 250 total associates in the company. We're in 33 states. We've probably got approximately 55 million square feet of development in the pipeline, and we currently have 15 million square feet under construction.
Jeez.
So doing quite a bit. Yeah, and we started again as St. Louis only.
Just incredible. I think I saw somewhere y'all are top 5 in the U.S.
We are, yeah. From an industrial development standpoint, our goal is to be number 1.
That's just incredible.
And we're a full service firm too. We do office, retail, industrial, multifamily, brokerage. We do the whole thing.
Yeah. So kind of going back to your father in the start of that, and then we'll shift it a little bit. But my last question with that is what was it like growing up with such an ambitious father? Because you have a large family. You've got a lot of siblings. I know we talked about that with Nick. Like, what was it like to have a father who was so goal-oriented and driven from a business standpoint, but you could also tell he cared deeply about developing his family?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. The way you said it's perfect. My dad's number one priority was family. Family above everything. Family harmony was most important to him, and second to that was business. But family was first. And my dad was an extremely hard worker, extremely dedicated. I remember, my dad being 65, 70 years old, and a lot of guys, that age and that time, my friends' parents and things they were retired. And my dad was kind of just rolling, so he always worked. His work ethic was unbelievable. But at the same time, he was able to balance that family life.
How has that kind of shaped it for you? Because, you went into the family business, you talked about this responsibility to steward that and to continue to grow it. And then you've also got your own family as well. So how you've approached that yourself. Hey guys, Jacob here. Real quick before we get back to the episode, I just want to take a quick second to say, if you guys are enjoying this episode, please make sure to share the link with a friend. You may have noticed I don't run any ads in the podcast. In fact, I don't make any money off the podcast. It's quite the contrary. Over the past 5 years, I've invested a lot of time, money, and effort into the growth of the show, trying to continually upgrade the equipment, bring on better guests, and just improve the overall quality of the podcast. So if you guys are enjoying this episode, or if you enjoyed previous episodes, please share the link with a friend. Sending it to 1 or 2 people makes a huge difference for me on the back end. As always, I appreciate your guys' support. Let's get back into the episode.
Yeah, it's, it's a challenge. There's no question about it, because myself, I wanted to always really drive hard and be successful, because I wanted to show that appreciation, that respect to my father. And in doing that, there's times you're not at home. However, my dad was always of the mindset that when you're at work, you work, and when you're at home, you're at home. Now, sometimes he may not have gotten home until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, or sometimes even later. But when it was time to be with your family, that's what you do. And for me, I do that as much as I possibly can. I've been a coach to my kids' games when, and their teams when they were younger, and don't miss any of the games. I shouldn't say any of them. Sometimes I do, but do my best to be a part of all of that. Yeah.
Do you believe in a true form of balance? Or I've heard people talk about maybe more of an integrated life. I'm curious how you kind of conceptualize that.
Yeah, I think balance, I don't like the way that term is used, because I think that gives people kind of an excuse to be lazy, for lack of a better term. I think more of a integrated, like you just said, and I've heard that before, and I really like that term. I think it means the same thing, but balance gives a little bit of connotation of, I can step back, where integration means you just kind of do it all. And that's part of a family business, and part of being a principal in a family business is there's times it'll be 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I'll be texting with my brothers. And that's just part of it, but at the same time, I'll set that phone down, and my daughter will be over there, and I'll go help her with her homework. You just work it out. But I don't like the idea of, okay, work's over, put your phone down. You're not going to do anything else the rest of the evening, but spend time with your family. It really doesn't work like that when you're self-employed, or, self-employed, and you have a bunch of people in your company that rely on you.
Yeah.
You can't just, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't just turn off.
That reliance piece has become more and more true for John and myself. We opened up the restaurant about a year ago, and we've got about 40 folks, hourly payroll, and then 2 salaried managers. And so, you working with your brothers, John and I are basically brothers at this point. How has that been, like, having that family dynamic, but also still feeling the pressure of, I need to provide for everyone that is in our company as well?
Well, there's nothing better than working with family, in my opinion. I mean, your successes and your wins are so much greater when you're doing it with your family. But it's also the same on the opposite side. Your failures and your losses are so much worse when you have family, because you just take it so personally. And especially if you're responsible for what may have not worked out, it's a big, heavy weight. At the same time, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I mean, we're 3 brothers that are type A personalities, and, there's been times in the past where we've had our ups and downs, and, a few blow ups here and there, but those days are behind us.
Yeah. I heard the Frisellas talk about once a year, they'll get in a full on, like, wrestling match with each other.
we don't have that once a year anymore, but there was a time where it was probably more often than once a year, but we've been able to mellow out as it comes to that. So.
Yeah, I love it. What is kind of your primary focus in the business? Where do you feel like you really provide the most value?
Well, the three of us, the way we're set up is it's like three CEOs of the company. But myself, I personally, what I like is I like focusing on culture, the legacy that my father has, and generating new business opportunities. I also do like grooming and working with leaders within the company and, people that want to continue to achieve success and grow and become better at different roles and things like that. I enjoy that as well. But I prefer working on the business as opposed to in the business.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You talked about having the responsibility to grow this because of the blessing you've been given from your family. Where does it come from that you have this desire to push yourself physically as well? Because you don't have to be out there doing half Ironmans, doing the workouts that we just did and everything else, but you've added that layer on top of this. You're not just going home with the end of the day.
That's a great question. It's kind of, I don't know. I feel kind of like, my dad, from his perspective, he worked out, he exercised, but not until later in life. Actually, when he had a health scare, is when he was in his 50s. And that's when he started really focusing on working out and made that a real priority. But my oldest brother kind of started us into the weightlifting when we were younger. And really don't know where it came from or why he did it, but he did it. And I kind of feel like success in business kind of goes hand in hand with working out and being healthy. Because if you're not healthy and if you're not fit, and I'm not saying you've got to be Arnold Schwarzenegger,
right?
But if you're just not a fit person and you're not healthy, what good are you to your family? What good are you to the people you're working with? What good are you to your company? My dad used to always say, you spend your whole life making your wealth, and then you'd give up all of your wealth to regain your health. So, the two kind of go hand in hand. It's why destroy yourself physically to be successful? And then all you worked for is gone because then you become sick and, we're all going to die one day, but you may as well take care of yourself and be as fit as you possibly can.
Yeah. It's the quality of life.
Excuse me.
It's being able to do things with your kids. It's being able to go and enjoy extracurricular activities. Like you can't do that if you're lethargic, if you're overweight, if you're having issues.
100%.
Yeah. That's a great point. I really like the way you word that.
I think your energy just in general at work, whether it's with your family or it's at work, if you're not fit, your energy level is down. You've got a lot more energy when you're working out.
So you said your older brother got you guys into it. How large is your family?
There's a total of 8 kids in my family. So there were 6 boys and 2 girls. And then I think there's 46 grandkids. And I think there's like 30 great grandkids.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Wow. Yeah, John and I were at a Bible study with Nick this morning, and he was talking with one of the people there. And
that was interesting.
We got done, and I was asking him about it, and he's like, "That's my nephew." It's like, oh my gosh,
age.
Like you guys have such a wide range of ages, and you got the nieces, nephews, grandkids. Yeah. Y'all are all over St. Louis.
Yeah. That's Nick and him were 6 months apart. They went to the same high school, were in the same class. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Kind of crazy.
Did you have some sort of injury or something? Like it seemed like when I was doing my research, there was an inflection point where you went from sure you were working out, but like to really ramping it up and focusing on.
Yeah, I had always worked out, like I said, just growing up, but it was always just lifting weights, power lifting or strength training and all that sort of thing. And I got hurt actually in a horseback riding accident. I played polo. I actually roped calves and I team roped. And then after that, I played polo for 15 years and had some injuries, but nothing major. And this was in the beginning of COVID. It was March 2020, and we were on lockdown. Everybody couldn't do anything. So my son and I went on a horseback ride just back here behind the house, and we were walking, and we were almost back. And my horse tripped, and some reason fell down. And when she went down, I broke my pelvis.
Jeez.
And it was strange because I never fell off the horse. I stayed on. But when the horse stood up, I knew when I was sitting there, I was like, something's really, really wrong. And long story short, my son called my wife and my neighbor because I couldn't get off the horse. They got me off the horse. I couldn't walk, couldn't take one step. Went to the ER, which I was more scared about going to the ER because of, at that time, COVID, and nobody knew anything of what was going on. And there were tents and masks and everything.
Good Lord.
And ended up having to get a surgery, and I've got a plate and 4 screws in the front and 2 screws in my SI joint. So that was 6 weeks in a wheelchair, and then about 6 weeks on a walker.
What happens to you mentally? Like when you realize that you got injured like that and your quality of life is about to drastically change for a period, like what does that do to you?
Well, for me, it kind of had the opposite effect. I took that as a challenge, as an opportunity to, I have 6 kids. So my kids growing up were all sports, played everything. Injuries kind of come with the territory. And I would always say to them when they got hurt, you got to come, you'll come back. Don't worry about it. It's part of it. You'll come back better, stronger, faster, all that. So I figured now when this happened to me, this is my time to practice what I preach. And it's time for me to show my kids what it's all about.
Yeah.
That I don't just say it, I do it.
Yeah.
So I maintained an extremely positive attitude throughout all of it. To the fact that my wife and my kids even talk about it to this day. They're like, I don't know how you were so positive all the time. But I had my days, but I just took it as a challenge for myself personally and a way to show to my kids.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's one thing to talk the talk, and when you have to walk the walk, that can be a much more difficult thing to execute.
Yeah.
When is it that you actually started getting into competing?
That was, I did my first half Ironman August of last year. And in May, end of May or middle of May of that same year, I was sitting here at the house. I remember it perfectly. And at the beginning of the year, I had put on my whiteboard what my goals were for the year. And one of them was to compete in a fitness event. That was as much description as I gave. Didn't know what that would mean. I just said, compete in a fitness event. I was sitting there and my buddy Sal called me. Phone rang. I remember I was watching the news. It was like 9:00 at night. I answered it. He goes, what are you doing? I said, watching the news. He said, you want to do a half Ironman with me? And I would just go, when is it? And he said, August 18th in Louisville, Kentucky. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And literally, it was just like that. I had not thought of it. And I was like,
no hesitation.
Ironman. Yeah. Huh?
No hesitation.
No. And I just did it. And anyway, that was mid-May. By June 1st, I had hired a coach, bought a bike. I'd never run. I'd never ridden. I swam when I was a kid, on a swim team.
Yeah.
By June 1st, I had a bike. I had a coach, had all my gear, and I was on a training program. And I trained, say, from June 1 until it was August 18th was the race.
Wow.
So, I guess almost 3 months.
I mean, that's a heavy prep to jump into. Did you have a period where you're like, you know what? I don't need to be doing this.
Oh, man. My first mile, I remember I ran from the house up that road right there, 1 mile, and I did it in 11 minutes and 30 seconds. Excuse me. And I was like, I was breathing heavy when I was done. And I said, I'm in trouble. I said, there's no way I'm going to get this. But all I did was I just kept focusing on one day at a time. The coach was key for me. Natasha with NVDM coaching, phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And without her, I would have never been able to do it, but I just trusted the process, and she gave me a workout to do every day, and I just focused on what I had to do that day.
Yeah.
And I didn't worry about what was going to happen next month or at the race or any of that. I just figured if I stay the course and do these workouts, it'll work out.
What did you learn in the process of training for something so difficult?
I learned absolutely that you can do anything you put your mind to. If you flip that switch, which is the hardest thing to do, is just to decide to make that decision. If you do, there's nothing you can't do. And I firmly believe it, because I have to tell you, I was the furthest thing from a runner, a bike rider, or a swimmer that you will ever get. I was the furthest from it. I never ran. I never did any of that. I could ride a bike, but I couldn't even reach my water bottle without stopping I had to stop the bike,
Mm-hmm.
drink of water. So once you make that decision and you just stay focused, I truly believe there's nothing you can't accomplish.
Yeah. I think it gives you a deeper sense of confidence in yourself. I run ultra marathons, and that's kind
awesome.
of a similar story. my cousin and I were setting our fitness goals for the year, and we wanted to do a marathon because we've never done it. And we said, well, what if we just doubled it and did 50 miles? So we went out and did 50 and then signed up for the 100, and we've kept kind of going after that.
Did you do 100?
Failed every time. 93 is my PR.
That's
trying
fantastic.
to get next month.
But one of my coaches who I work with today, his name's Chris Lieto. He was the number 2 Ironman in the world.
Wow.
Number 2. But when he started his journey, when he was in his 20s, he said, I'm going to be number 1 in the world. And he said that people say to him, well, how do you feel? You never made number 1.
Yeah.
And he said, if I would have never set the goal to not be number 1, I would have never been number 2 in the world.
Right.
Because everybody told me when I was in my 20s and I said that and I hadn't ridden a bike once, they said, you're nuts. It'll never happen. So he said, I didn't get to number 1, but I got to number 2.
Yeah.
So just because you might set a goal, you would have, and you don't reach it, you would have never gotten to where you would have never gotten to that 93 if you didn't say, I want to run 100.
Right.
So,
well, and setting a big goal creates a paradigm shift, right? Because it was scary for you to start the Ironman prep. It was scary for me to start the ultramarathon prep. But once you actually get through and you do it, on the backside, you have a newfound sense of confidence.
Oh,
and you realize my goals have been too small prior to that.
Man, I'm telling you, for me, that half Ironman, it changed my whole life in terms of how I look at myself and how I view other things and how I view challenges or obstacles. It totally and completely changed my life.
Yeah. That's
better.
That's next to my list. I'm going to do 100 next month, or actually November. And then I'm getting into Ironman prep because that scares me, dude. I'm a terrible swimmer.
Well, believe me, you'll have no problem. You can do it and you will do it. The full Ironman, now that's another story. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. That's running a marathon. I ran a marathon. And after my Ironman, I did a marathon about a couple of months later. And that was almost harder on me than it was to do the Ironman.
That distance, because it's the repetitive motion on your joints, right? Because you're hitting the pavement and your knees are just taking all of that load.
Yeah. And when they say when you hit that 20-mile mark, hit that wall at 20, I hit it hard.
Yeah.
And that's why, kudos to you, man, doing 93. I don't know how you did that.
Yeah. You should have seen John and I. We did the St. Louis Marathon a couple of years ago. John's 6'7", 240. he got it done. And I know it was tough for him, but he got it. He's shaking his head behind the camera.
Hey,
we love you, John.
Doesn't matter. And somebody told me when you do the half Ironman, they said, my goal was to finish within the time cap. I just wanted, and healthy. I wanted to finish it within the time cap and healthy. And they're like, nobody ever asked you what your time was. They always just, say you did it. First thing I got asked when I said I completed it was, what was your time? And I was like, God darn, nobody's supposed to ask that.
Yeah.
Which I beat the time. I did fine. But of course, just being competitive, as soon as I crossed the finish line and looked at my time, I was like, dang it, I wish I would have gone faster. But
so we're talking about goals that scare us. I feel like you need to put a date out there for this full Ironman. I feel like you need to get something on the calendar.
I don't know. I'm working on it. I got to get my mind around. I'm focused on the high rocks right now.
Yeah, that's fair. High rocks is brutal. That's high intensity exercises.
Yeah, I'm going to do that in February. And then after that, we'll see what happens.
So you've mentioned goal setting a couple of times. Is that something your father taught you? Because I feel like this is kind of a lost art that many people don't give much thought to.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, my dad, he was a visionary, and you call it manifesting or whatever. But my dad really was a man of faith. And that's one of our core values in our company is faith. And, faith can mean a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily mean, we're Catholic. It doesn't mean, it has to do with your religion or anything. It's just having faith in a higher power. And my dad was committed to that. And he was also committed to personal hard work and commitment, and not just relying on faith and just saying, oh God, please help me. I hope this works out. You've got to put the hustle behind the muscle. And my dad always was a visionary, and he always had big goals. And I remember not long before he passed, he said something to me when I was at his house talking with him, and it was about business. And he made a statement to me and said, there's no reason why this shouldn't happen. And he told me what it was. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, that's insane. There's no way that can happen. That'll never happen. And it wasn't 3 years, maybe after he passed, maybe 4 years, exactly what he said we would achieve, we did.
Crazy.
And actually beyond that. And I mean, it gives me goosebumps to think about it because, right. And I still remember that. And I think about that often because anytime I have in my mind that thought of doubt
Mhm.
or, maybe not, I don't know, maybe I can't, I think of that story. And I, my dad died 6 years ago. So I was, 48 years old, 49 years old when he died. I mean, I wasn't a kid.
Mhm.
And I was like, there's no way, and I was just like, oh, he's just talking. He doesn't know. There's no way. And sure enough, he was right. So you can't put any limits on yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think setting the biggest goals, if you think a goal is big, make it even bigger. And like I said, if you don't hit it, like my buddy didn't hit number 1, but he hit number 2.
Yeah.
So if your goal's way, way up there and you don't hit it, you're going to be in a good spot regardless.
Yeah. Without a target, you're just floating around. At least you got
Exactly.
something to aim at.
Yeah. There's just no goal. Yeah.
I believe that's kind of how we're structured. Some weird way as humans, once we have a goal, something that we're aiming towards in that general direction, it's weird how puzzle pieces connect to just help you get towards that.
Well, and I think too, for me anyway, I think it's really important to write it down because I think once you write it down, you get it out of your body. It's out of your mind. It's on a piece of paper. You had to physically write it or on a wall or whatever you want to do. Mine, I have a whiteboard in my office where all the stuff's written on it. And I just periodically go up to it and read it. And I think having it in your mind is great, but getting it out on paper makes a difference.
Yeah. I want to get tactical on this because I think it's important for people that are John and my age to understand this. You guys are performing at a very high level, and goal setting is something that you intentionally do. It sounds like it's important to write it down. When are you creating goals? What categories of goals are you creating? When are you checking on them? Like, what is the structure around your goal setting?
The way I do it is I look beginning of the year, how they say, your New Year's resolution or whatever. Well, that's the time where I'll have all my goals identified by January 1st, for that year. Write them all out. I have personal goals. I have spiritual goals. I have business goals. I have family goals. I've got a lot of different goals. And I have buckets that I write them down in. And, I don't get them all the time. There's a lot of times I fail on them and don't achieve them. But when I do, at the end of the year, it's pretty cool to look back and see those check marks and know. And you know what? If I didn't set those, it's like you said before, if you don't have a target, what are you aiming for? You're just kind of floating around and you don't know, did I do what I was supposed to do or what I wanted to, you don't know. But if you have it written down and I look at, you said, how often do you look at it? I look at mine probably like once a month.
Yeah.
Cause they're just right in my office. So I see them. I just probably look at them once a month and see how I'm doing. I actually looked at it today and realized I'm falling short on one of them. So
yeah,
I got to pick it up.
I mean, that's part of it. That it's that measurement piece of it. Like when you look at it often, you can check like, well, am I making progress on it? But if you just write it down, put it away and look at it at the end of the year, it's like,
exactly.
Did I even do anything?
Yeah. You got to keep checking on it. Not that you have to do it monthly, but that's just the way I do it. But you need to check on it because otherwise, if you just let it go and stick it in a drawer, it'll be December and you'll be like, oh, what are my goals? And see, oh man, I failed on a lot of them.
So that's something tactical you do in regards to goal setting. I'm curious how you structure your day. I'm sure your day-to-day is never the same. It's always changing. What does your day-to-day kind of look like?
On Sundays, every Sunday I organize my whole week. I just take some time on Sunday. And when I say organize my whole week, in my schedule, I have literally everything in there from when I say my prayers, to when I work out, to when I eat, to when I have a meeting, to when I have calls. If I go to dinner with my family or go to my kids' game, all that's in my schedule. So I look at my workouts just like another commitment of my day, just like a business meeting or a conference call or whatever it might be. My workouts scheduled that way too. Now, sometimes those got to, depending on what's going on, those have to jump around.
Yeah.
But I do my best to just stick with that schedule. But I mean, my day is, typically I wake up. I like to get up fairly early. I don't touch my phone for the first, at least 30 minutes.
That's great.
When I wake up. That's kind of a new thing. And thanks to my daughter for that. She's the one that got me on that. And that's been a game changer for me. And I come out here where we're sitting, do my morning routine in there with some supplements and stuff that I do, and come out here and I'll do my prayer time. And then I'll kind of look at my phone for a little bit. And then, just go about my day.
Yeah. I think you talked about the workouts being a commitment on your calendar. I think that's part of the integrated life. Like, you take time to
Right.
invest in your family, you take time to invest in your health, you take time to invest in your faith. And that's not at the detriment of your business, but rather it's allowing you to live in a more holistic manner that'll ultimately, I think, benefit you in the long run. Because if you were to go and grind all day 24/7 on business, you'd inevitably hit burnout. Like, we're just not
Oh, yeah.
structured that way as creatures. So I think you intentionally viewing those as investments will help you perform over the longer run.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And the exercising and the workouts and the fitness that I do make me better at my job.
Mhm.
They really do. It's not only from an energy standpoint, but just from a focus and a clarity and mental clarity. And just if you're constantly just bogged down and you're just constantly grinding, you don't have any of that release. I think you just, like you said, you're just going to burn out.
Yeah. Nick had mentioned that you guys have significantly grown the business. As you mentioned, that responsibility. I think you mentioned north of $1 billion of assets under management. You guys are performing at a very high level, but you're talking about the importance of faith. You're talking about the importance of working out. What is it that you've found about faith that helps you guys to perform at a high level? I mean, it's a core value that you've even listed. What is the benefits you've seen of that in the business world?
Well, I've just, seen it firsthand ever since I've been a kid. And then when I first started working with my dad when I was 23, 24 years old, is we started every meeting with a prayer. My dad always did. And he started every one of our meetings with a prayer, which we still do that to this day. Our staff meetings and our bigger meetings, we start every one of them with a prayer. But, look, let's face it, there's a higher power. And all of these things that we have are gifts from God. And sure, you work for it, you do all that. But without him, there's no way you can achieve this type of stuff. I just, the type of success we've had, and not to get too kind of corny on it, but I can just see it so clearly. It's like we've had these monumental projects or these monumental tasks that we've had to do, and it's, man, how are we going to be able to do this? How can we pull this off? You pray and you work hard, and guess what? We pull it off, and it's like, how did we do it? And some other companies out there that are way bigger than us, they couldn't get it done, and we got it done. Well, that's God in your corner.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the faith part comes into it. I mean, we're all limited in what we can do, but if you're relying on God and you put your faith and your trust in God and work hard, you're unstoppable.
I think there's a ratio too, and I think that's what you're hitting on the head. I mean, I obviously don't know because I haven't created it in my life, but it seems like just from having all these interviews that the Bible talks about the component of it's not just pray and you're going to receive it. It's not just a genie in a bottle situation, but it's not just I'm going to grind and work until I receive it. It's both those. It's the faith. It's
100%.
asking and praying for it, but also you have to meet God halfway and do the work.
100%. I mean, my father went to mass almost every morning before work. He'd go to 6:30 mass, 6:30 a.m. And back in those days, everybody wore a suit and tie. And I was a kid, and I remember he'd come into my room and say goodbye to me in the morning. And it'd be like 6:15 in the morning, and he'd be dressed in a suit and tie.
Wow.
He'd go to church and then go right to the office. And he did that like many, many, many years. So that was just ingrained in me as a kid, growing up. And I saw the success my dad had, and I saw the love that he had for family and the commitment he had to family and to work and how he did it all, and made it all work. And that's kind of where I got it from.
Yeah. You mentioned your dad being dressed in a suit and tie. That reminded me, Nick still is the unofficial best dressed guest I've had on the podcast. I know that you also enjoy getting dressed up. Where's that come from?
My dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad loved clothes. I love clothes. And a lot of my brothers do. Nick, as you mentioned, loves them as well. And my dad, I remember not always, but as he got older and achieved some success, he would get his suits made. And I remember going with him to the tailor to have his suit made. And he just loved nice clothes. And he always took care of his things, though. He took care of his clothes. Like when he'd take them off, he'd hang them up, and he took care of them because, it was an investment. And that was a trait I learned from my dad.
Yeah. I love it. You guys are usually the best dressed people in the room.
Yeah. Well, and I always say it doesn't have to mean dressing well doesn't necessarily mean you have to wear a suit and tie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just being presentable, clean, sharp, nice look, nice outfit. That's what's important. You don't have to have on a 3-piece suit every day.
Yeah.
But just looking presentable and taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. As I'm thinking about what could be valuable for the listeners' advice for the next generation, you guys, again, as I mentioned, are performing at a very high level. What advice would you give to folks my age that might be intimidated about how large you guys are and how are we ever going to get there? Ourselves trying to build something.
Like I was saying, I think if you got to set those big goals, and then each day you focus on 2 or 3 things that you're going to achieve that day, they're going to eventually get you to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you set a goal for in 5 years, I want to be this, or in 1 year, I want to do this. If you don't have little goals along the way, you'll never reach it. And you'll just you'll be in your, if you set a 5-year goal, you'll be in your 4.5 years and you'll be like, oh man, I never got to that goal.
Yeah.
But just don't get overwhelmed. It's kind of like me with training for the half Ironman. Don't get overwhelmed with the big picture. Set it. It's there. But then just break it down into, okay, what I want to do 2 things this day that's going to get me closer to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I think another big piece of it is mentorship. I think that people can be intimidated to reach out, even to do this podcast. It can be hard to reach out to people that you look up to and to even ask for help. But I think that generation is willing to provide help to our generation. What advice would you give to folks trying to look for mentorship and trying to genuinely learn from those that are ahead of them?
Well, there's so many more opportunities nowadays for that. I mean, there's books, there's podcasts, there's all kinds of things out there about how a man or a woman can be successful and what they need to do. But one of the other things I think is extremely important is just keep your circle tight. Surround yourself with like-minded people that want the same things you want. And, sometimes that means you're cutting out old relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and things in your life and people that maybe don't have the same drive or don't have the same focus as you. And sometimes along the way, you're going to even lose friends that you thought you had because they're going to see you going into a different direction and they won't like it for whatever reason. But surround yourself with good people, with like-minded people, and keep your circle tight.
Yeah. No, I like that advice a lot. We're kind of talking about like the way that you live your life, maybe principles of success. Do you have any other guiding principles? It can be a quote. It can just be an operating system, just guiding principles that you think have enabled you to continue to perform at a high level.
Yeah. Well, one of them is never quit. And that seems really basic. But I've got that on a frame on my desk. It's never quit. And I think that applies to everything you're doing in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between changing course and quitting. Changing course is fine, but quitting and giving up, don't ever allow it to happen. And another thing is just because you have failures, and this came from my father as well, if you've not failed, you've not tried hard enough. That's the bottom line. You're going to fail, but don't let a failure stop you or make you be like, oh my gosh, I'm a disaster. I'm a disgrace. I'll never be able to do anything. We all fail.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who hasn't failed hasn't tried hard enough, or they're just not being honest.
Yeah.
But you learn from those mistakes, you pick up and you keep going.
Yeah. It sounds like you're saying it's a part of the process. Like that experience is necessary to get you to that next
100%.
step.
100%. You have to have failures. Now you just hope your failures aren't enormous to where they, have some devastating effect on you. But, failure is just part of the process and you just got to keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So you like to really challenge yourself in the physical landscape as well as in the business world. How do you like to decompress?
Well, actually, I love the working out is kind of helps me decompress. Mm-hmm. And also I really, really enjoy, spending time outdoors, in nature. I love to ride horses. My wife and I ride often in the evenings when the weather's good. I'm fortunate that I have a beautiful farm and I get out there a lot on the weekends and I've got a lake out there and I love to hunt. I love to fish and I love to just be in nature. And for me, being outdoors and in nature, whether it's fishing or hunting or just taking a hike is very spiritual. And I really feel close to God when I'm in nature.
Yeah. I think that's something super cool, whether it's hiking a mountain, walking on the beach, just getting outside. It's really cool how you can feel that connection even stronger.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, for me, that's my biggest source of relaxation is the outdoors.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
To throw you a curveball, have you done the ice bath or sauna? Have you tried either of those?
Oh, yeah. I have both of them in my house.
Okay. You a fan of them?
Yes, I am. I think, me personally, and I don't know what people will say out there, I don't think an ice bath is something like you should do every single day. I think it's good to do, especially if you're training really hard and, just like how you'd use ice on your body if you were sore.
Right.
Your knee was sore, your low back, you'd put an ice pack on it. That's how I like to use the cold plunge. The sauna, I think, is great.
Yeah.
I think that's the infrared sauna is what I have, and I think that's awesome. And, you read so much stuff about how good it is for you and all that.
I think it's great for decompressing too. Like there's a lot of literature around doing it before bed and it helps you like prepare for REM sleep.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorite things to do after hard days. Let's just go lay in the sauna and just get ready.
I like it a lot too. Yeah. And I'm not really good with the cold, so that's maybe part of the reason why I don't want to jump in it every day.
Yeah.
But I do think it's very beneficial if your body's pretty beat up. That cold plunge is great.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah.
Okay, Doug, as we start to wrap up here, I've just got a couple of things for you. First thing is, I got to put this out into existence, right? We're talking about goal setting. I think it's incredible that you did that half Ironman. I think it's cool that Sal did it. I've had both of you on the podcast. I think we need to line up a joint episode where we can get both of your, because you guys are both in so far parallels. You must realize this, right? Like you're both running large, massive businesses, headquartered in St. Louis, challenging yourself in the same physical domains, roughly the same age. You both have families. The overlap is incredible. I think that'd be a super synchronistic podcast.
I'm up for it. Yeah, I think it'd be great.
We'll get it lined up. Doug, where can people find you online if they want to reach out, connect, or learn more?
You can find me, you can go to the Sansone Group website, www.sansonegroup.com, or me personally, you can find me on Instagram.
Yeah. You're starting to post more.
I am doing quite a bit of posting. I got a little team helping me.
What's the strategy behind that?
Number one is to get people to focus on Sansone Group and to generate business towards the company, or to at least generate awareness towards the company. And then also to be an example to my children of, you can talk to them, you can tell them things, but I think when they see it, especially now in today's day and age, and they see it on their phone and see it out there, it has a much bigger impact. And then also, if there's anybody out there that might be struggling or going through a hard time, if it can even help one person, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I love seeing the content. And I think one of the things that's interesting as well is like, who do high performers look to, right? Because one of the things that's important to continue to sharpen the axe. So I'm curious whether it's a book or a podcast, like what do you do to continue to sharpen your axe? What do you enjoy reading or listening to? Or
I like a lot of different things. I think number one is prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important. I think you can get a lot of wisdom through prayer. I've just started reading the Bible, getting more involved in that. But also there's some podcasts I like. I like Andy's podcast a lot. I also like Bedros Keuilian.
Yeah.
He's great. He's also a good friend. Andy's a good friend as well. I like those. I've read a lot of great books. But I think, there's a lot of opportunity out there and a lot of things you can expose yourself to help you continue to get better.
Yeah. Bedros is one of your guys' business coaches, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Remarkable.
Yeah, he's awesome. And he's done a great job for us at the company, and really, really a great guy all around.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Doug. I've got one more question for you. But first, if you guys enjoy this episode, please make sure to share it. And you can find me on Instagram at Jacob O'Connor. The podcast is at Real Period Conversations. Doug, my final question for you. Looking back at this really cool journey you've been on, what advice would you offer to your 23-year-old self?
That's a good one. To my 23-year-old self, I would say don't limit yourself. I remember when I was a young guy and I had gotten to a certain point in my career and I thought, holy cow, I've done really, really, really well. And I thought, kind of that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And not that everything's about, being financially successful. But for me, I will be honest, that was a very big goal of mine, was to be financially successful. And I think just telling myself, don't limit yourself and think big and stay the course. Just commit to what you're doing and stay the course. And all things good happen in time. Nothing's going to happen overnight. And set a goal for yourself and chip at it each day, and you'll find yourself that you'll gain that success.
That's great advice. Thank you for coming on, Doug.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.